Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Backstage Bimbo TV. It's me, Allison Rouse again, your most notorious groupie and author of We've Got Tonight, The Life and Times of Notorious Groupie, me. Thank you, everybody, for all the love, all the support, everybody who has truly supported me, especially everybody over at Patreon. Thank you so much for the support while I'm still trying to figure it out, what I'm doing. I do have concerts coming up, so hopefully I'll have some good stuff for you guys over there. All right, you guys, this week we are going way past my Vegas years because in my book, I stopped my story in 2002 because what's there to tell after waking up to that and John, and that's when I became a different type of groupie, I guess. I was part of the Who's history and Las Vegas history because every time there's a book written about Las Vegas, I'm in it. But the history of Las Vegas. In rock and roll history, the Who's history, I kind of just fell into place. So it kind of took me to a different groupie experience. So I don't talk about it because after I left Vegas, yes, I still was hanging out with bands. I was still very active in the rock scene because these are my friends. This is a family that I've known for 1,000 years. Where else am I going to be hanging out? I feel safe, comfortable. So, like I said, we're going to the Megadeth, Slayer, and Anthrax tour. But we're also getting a visit from Nickelback. Yep, Nickelback. Because sometimes on the road, bands cross paths in certain cities. And Megadeth was playing one night, and Nickelback was playing the next night. And my friend Orris was working for Nickelback. So, we are going to have a little pomegranate and vodka, because this is what Dave Mustaine made me this night. And I had the red Solo cup up and literally for 12 years. I had this cup that I just hung on to because groupies hang on to the weirdest rock and roll memorabilia. It may look like a box of junk to you, but it's every one of our experiences to us. There's a whole story behind the most mundane objects. So I have a picture of it. I had to finally get rid of it a few months ago because it was just broken all apart. It was no longer a red Solo cup. It was roadkill. So, all right, grab your pommies, kick up your feet, and let's have a cocktails and rocktails, shall we? Cheers, big ears. All right. So like I said, my friend Orris calls me. He's like, hey, I'm coming into town. And he was working for Nickelback, but the night before Nickelback was Megadeth. So they come into town. I meet Orris at the hotel. We have a couple drinks at the bar talk to a few other road crew guys, a couple guys in the band. There's a little barbecue because Nickelback has their own chef that comes on the road with them. And he has this big barbecue that he lugs around he makes the best shrimp. Anyway, so grab a couple bite to eat, have a drink, take off to the gig at Megadeth. We get there, we run into the guys in Anthrax, because Orris has worked for everybody. Orris is like one of the top FOH guys in the world. He's one of the best of the best. But, so he's worked for a lot of people from Journey to Motley to Ministry, Megadeth, Nickelback. Just, the resume keeps going and going because he's been around. Ozzy's when I first met him, when Kip Winger story. So shows you at 2010 and 1986 or 7 how far I go back. But anyway, so we take off to Megadeth, and so we're all hanging out with the guys in Anthrax and watching them play. We run into Junior, Dave Ellefson, because his nickname was Junior back then. So we run into Junior, and he's like, Orris is like, hey, you know Allison? And Junior's all like a deer caught in the headlights. And I could tell that Junior was still thinking that maybe I wanted to sleep with him. Dude, it was fun and stuff, but so is my vibrator. It wasn't like mind-blowing sex, it was fun. So no, and it was just a one-time thing because I was bored, really. So, and he's kind of trying to run around and avoid me, and we had gone up to one of the private VIP booths to watch Slayer. I think it was Slayer playing, and the guys in Anthrax were up there, and other road guys and a couple the other guys in Megadeth's band, but not Dave Mustaine. And around this time is when I decided to write my book in 2008. I had an agent right about then that I did walk away from later, with Trident Media, and I had been kind of slowly, as the bands I knew and was hanging around still came into town, I was kind of slowly letting them in on, hey, I'm writing this book. It's kind of where my life has taken me. Just wanted you to know so nobody has any problems later on. And Dave Mustaine was kind of one that I wanted to say something to because I was only 16. I was not legal yet. I was of the age of consent. But not, like I've said before, none of the guys knew it. We all had fake IDs. But because this was my story and I was being truthful with it, I wanted to let people know who needed to know. And Dave Mustaine was one of them. So anyway, we're all hanging out. Junior and Orris is keeping up with Junior when we're going back down to the dressing rooms and stuff. And they had to go on stage, so I'm just sort of casually walking behind him. I'm like, fuck, why are you running, Junior? Because he's trying to avoid me, which, go right ahead, Junior. It's okay. You do whatever makes your ego happy. Obviously, what makes his ego happy is women who intentionally, maliciously, purposely film him jacking off and sell it to the media. That's what turns him on. Dumbass. God. Anyway, so we go watch the show. We're hanging out on the side of the stage, and Orris and I had gone to the FOH board for a while to watch Megadeth, and there is Chad, the lead singer of Nickelback, and a couple of the other guys. They had come to the show too, but we hadn't seen them. You know, we were just running off doing our own things. So after the show, Orris and I go into Dave Mustaine's dressing room because Dave had his own dressing room, and he's got to go run and find Chad and Junior and whatever and do a couple things. It's going to take him about 10 minutes. And I'm like, I am not running. I'm like, I'm staying in this dressing room with you, Dave. Because when we walked in, he was like, you remember Allison? She's the queen of the scene here in Salt Lake City. And he's like, I think. I'm like, Dio, when you were opening up for them? Yeah, okay. Wow. It's been a long time. I mean, we've seen each other a few times. I've crossed paths with Megadeth and stuff. He's like, wow, that was a while ago. That's cool. He's like, thinking about the 80s. He's like, yeah, go ahead, do what you think. She and I'll just sit here and talk. And their tour managers in there might have been the same one. I'm not going to say whether it was or not. I know whether it was or not. But so we get to talking. He's like, God, that was a long time ago. What year was it? And I'm like, speaking of year, I've got something to tell you. You know, I'm writing a book about my rock and roll. He's like, why would you do that? I'm like, hun, wake up next to a dead rock star in Vegas? Your life doesn't have much of a choice of what you're going to do from then on. And he was like, what? He's like, holy shit. And we talked about it. He's like, whoa. He's like, girl, he's like, you've been through a lot of rock and roll, haven't you? I'm like, no more, no less than you've been through, Dave, or Orris, or anybody else that's in this backstage area tonight. So he was cool with it, which was awesome, because there are bands that I worried about that I wasn't sure were going to be cool with it. So Dave was cool with it, and he's a Virgo, I'm a Virgo. We just always gotten along, and he's such a sweet guy. He may come across as all rough and tumble, grumbly, bitchy boy, but he really is one of just the nicest, politest, just kick-back people I've met. I really love his personality. But so anyway, Orris comes back. He's got Chad in tow and stuff like that. And Dave's like, let's get you a drink, Alice. And I was like, okay. Because we'd been smoking weed, chatting, catching up, whatever. You know, and I just like, just give me the cranberry vodka because I happened to see this big bottle of cranberry juice. I didn't want to be complicated. And he was like, no, this is cheap cranberry juice. He's like, here, I've got pomegranate juice, the real stuff. He's like, so let me make you a pomegranate and vodka. And like I said, I still have this red Solo cup I had it up until 3 months ago. So for 12 years, I carried this red Solo cup around because I had set it in my car. And then I just kept putting stuff like my phone in it and stuff. Ended up keeping it, but it was just so, it was time to let the Dave Mustaine solo cup go. I do have a picture of it that I will post at the end of the video, along with one of me and Orris. And so anyway, we're hanging out, and it was so funny to watch Chad, the lead singer Nickelback. And this is around the time I think he had just proposed to Avril Lavigne. They weren't married yet, but they were dating. So he was enjoying some time in the spotlight because of Avril Lavigne and his relationship. They were like the big couple in Canada. So he's kind of like, it was funny to watch him following around Dave, like, dude, you're such a huge influence. I love Megadeth. And he was totally fanboying him. And me and Orris are just like, and so is Dave, for that matter. And he's trying to be like, yeah. And he's like, so, Orris or Allison, and like purposely trying to start a conversation with us, you know. He's like, so let's have a little party in here tonight. He's like, I haven't felt, you know, this fun since the 80s. And because, you know, Dave was pretty quiet at this point in 2010. He was play a show, kick back, smoke a bowl after the show, go back to the hotel, relax, do whatever he does. So for him to have a little get together in his dressing room that night was kind of a big deal. So Orris goes and tells everybody, and so does the tour manager. So all the guys in Slayer and Megadeth and who was the other band? Anthrax. You know, and I'm talking to Jeff Hanneman, and he's like, you look familiar. I'm like, yeah, when you guys opened up for Judas Priest, I'm like, I introduced you to my friend. And he's like, I think I remember that blonde girl. I was like, yeah, who had your baby. It's speculative because my friend Lisa, I introduced her and Jeff Hanneman in the 80s, like 1989, backstage. They were together. She slept with another guy 2 weeks later and then had this baby. The other guy she slept with was kind of darker hair and more olive skin, like Italian. And her baby was like really blonde, blue eyes. Speculative, just saying is all. But I didn't tell Jeff that, which is kind of a bummer because Jeff never had kids his whole life. So, that he knew of. So anyway, I knew. So, kind of talking to those guys and stuff, and really just wanted to not really be a part of this big party. And Dave could kind of tell, so he's like, come over here. And so he kind of pulls me to the side, and we're talking. He's like, hey, let's get out of here in a minute. Let's go smoke. And I was like, okay. I'm like, do you care, Orris? He's like, no, do what you... He's like, but take a picture of me and Dave first. So I'm like, okay. And Chad is still like kind of following Dave Mustaine around. Junior's still avoiding me. Orris and I are just kind of being social butterflies because that's who we both are. But I'm still kind of sticking close to Dave because I just like hanging out with Dave. It's a much more relaxed energy he has. So Orris is like, before you go out there real quick, because he knew Dave wouldn't come back, but I would. He's like, take a picture of me and Dave. I was like, yeah, because they've been friends for 20, 30 years at this point. So I take a picture, and this is when cell phone cameras were really first a thing. And, you know, we were like getting more comfortable with taking pictures of our friends. So, and I'm sitting there, I'm focusing on the camera when all of a sudden, leaning in, I see... And it's Chad, and he's all getting, because it's Orris and then it's Dave, and the look on Orris and Dave's face, we're both like, fuck, dude. And they're trying to, and I'm like, and Orris is like, I'm trying to zoom in, and no matter what I did, Chad's just getting in there. So I was like, fuck it. I'm like, I gotta take it. And it's the fucking funniest picture, and it's not mine to show, so I'm not gonna, but it cracks me up because the look on Orris and Dave's face, and then Chad all fanboyed out to the side. Oh my God, it was hilarious. So this was just kind of a stupid little silly quiet night. You know, I ran out, smoked a bowl with Dave. We talked. He asked me more questions about the book, you know, about my age. I said, Dave, we had, you know, I explained it to him. We had fake IDs. I lied to you that night. There's no way. He's like, no. He's like, you were always a cool girl. He's like, I know you wouldn't. You've got, because he had my back the first night we met, a couple times. So yeah, I got you, Dave. I got you, boo. I have rock and roll's back like they've had mine. So yeah, went back in. Orris and I finished up the party, left, went and had a little late night dinner and drink, and went home and saw Nickelback the next day. Which, if on my thumbnail, I'll put the, because they actually, I hate to say this, God, I'm going to say it, I'm saying it out loud. I actually kind of like their live shows. I hate Nickelback, but they have good energy in their live shows. So on the thumbnail for this video, that band with the green and black, that's Nickelback going from the main stage. They had a second stage where they floated above the crowd that they snuck out to, and that's on the FOH board with Orris and me taking the picture. So on the thumbnail of this video, that's the next night at that show. So there you guys go. There's a little more story to let you guys know. Yes, I still hang out with bands. It's not the same like the 80s or even my Vegas years where I was keeping, Steve Jones and Vinnie Paul still doing the juggling. We all grow up, but we maintain a friendship with our old lovers, and not everybody, because who does? Who knows everybody they knew in their high school years? Nobody. But there's certain bonds that just never stop. The certain friendships that no matter how long you go without saying, hey, 15 years, you can still stop by and say, hey. It's the thing I love about rock and roll. It's always home. It's always comfortable. It's always there, and it's always awesome. So there's a little more story. Like I said, I don't write much in the book about after 2002 in my rock life because I'm stuck in it. I'm part of it. I'm done. I'm in it for life. I always joke about it before, but yep, those are my boys. And, I understand it, and I don't know if I'd understand a life without it. Because just, I'm used to the travel and to the different world that it really does have for the friendships and the lovers and everything. So there you guys go. Hope you liked it. Chad was the funniest thing. Stay tuned for the picture of the red Solo cup. God rest its soul. The Dave Mustaine soul. It went back to Dave Mustaine's winery. That's heaven for the Dave Mustaine Solo Cup. So, all right, there you guys go. Thanks again for all the love, you guys. Don't forget to hit the share button, hit the bells, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and I'll ring some bells. All right, guys. We'll see you next Sunday. Cheers, big ears.